Good morning again. So, Joey's going to preach in a few minutes, I promise. First of all, we have a big, exciting announcement to make today. Today, October 1st, we are officially launching Grace Church's Connect Journey. Thank you for the 4 people who clapped, but for everyone else who's looking at me confused, saying, Jared, what do you mean? What's the Connect Journey? I'm glad you asked, because I'm going to tell you about it. You're getting passed around some brochures right now that have some information in there, but this is a big step that as a church, that we're about to step out on. 10 years ago, Joey started Grace Church up on the Independence Square. This January, actually, would be our 10-year anniversary. He felt God leading him in a vision to start a church here in Independence, and him and a group of committed Christ followers took a small building up on the square and turned it into a church and launched Grace Church in 2014. He didn't know exactly where it was going to lead, what the end of that road was going to look like. He was just taking a step of faith and trusting God that that's what he wanted him to do. And through that initial launch at First Grace Church, we saw people come to Christ. We saw salvations. We saw changed lives. We saw God reaching out to the community around Grace Church. And we saw that church grow. And after a couple of years, that building was kind of small. We outgrew it. And so in 2016, we moved over to Chrisman High School. And we used the auditorium there and the cafeteria area there. And for those of you who were there, you remember it was a lot of work. We'd had to get there early every Sunday morning and set everything up. We'd have to stay after and tear everything down. But we were committed to doing that because we saw that was the vision God had for us at that time. And we didn't know where that was going to lead, but we were trusting God and taking a step of faith. And even then, we saw salvations. We saw changed lives. We saw God reaching out to the community around us. In 2017, God led us out of there and into another space up on Nolan Road, the shopping strip that we had previously. Joey found that space, and a lot of people, myself included, we were skeptical about what it was going to look like to have church in this space, but with God's help, we miraculously turned that into a church, and it was a great church, and we spent a few years there. And again, we saw salvations and people come to Christ and changed lives and God reaching out to the community. And then in 2021, God led us here to our permanent home. We merged with Calvary Baptist Church. The Calvary people joined the Grace family, and we've been here these last few years, and here we've seen changed lives and people come to Christ and God reaching out to the community. At Grace Church, thank you. At Grace Church, we have a tradition. We have a history of taking a step out on faith and trusting God even when we can't see the end of the road He's taking us down. And that's what the Connect Journey is about. We feel like that is the next big step God has for us as a church. Some of us have been around since the very beginning. Some have been more recent in the last few months or years. Some, the staff has changed and evolved over time. The facilities of Grace Church, the congregation of Grace Church, the staff of Grace Church, it looks a lot different today than it did in the beginning, but one thing that hasn't changed is our mission. Grace Church exists to help people find and follow Jesus. Everything we do, everything that we have done is with that goal in mind. So this Connect Journey that we're embarking on today. So why is it called the Connect Journey? Well, for one thing, it's going to help us connect with Jesus. As we grow in our faith and obedience, both as individuals and as a congregation, our relationship with Jesus is going to strengthen and solidify. It's going to connect us to our community. We're going to be giving the church a facelift, basically. It's going to attract more people who are seeking God and people who are seeking a community of believers that they can be a part of. It's going to help us connect to each other. Right now, we have this auditorium building here, and next door we have the kids building. We're going to be adding a third building out front that's going to connect these two buildings. It's awesome. It's going to essentially turn it all into one building. So the new building is going to give us a space for gatherings and events. It's going to make it more comfortable to visit and have fellowship before and after the services, and it's essentially going to put us all under one roof. So there's a few things we want to be clear about as we start this. And first thing is that we don't have all the answers right now. We don't know exactly what it's going to take to make this happen. We're trusting God. One thing we do know is it's not about brick and mortar, right? We don't know exactly what the finished product is going to look like. And in just a moment, you're going to get to see an animation with an artist rendering, and I think there's a picture in your brochure there too of what it could look like. And I think it looks pretty awesome. I think you'll agree when you see it. But at this point, we have to understand that this is a concept. This is what it could look like, but it might look a little bit different than that. It's not about meeting a deadline. We're committed to this process at least for the next 3 years, but honestly, we don't know exactly how long it's going to take. God works on His own timeline, not ours. It could take longer. It could take less time. It's not about money. We don't know exactly how much it's going to take to build this thing. And at the end of this month, we're going to be asking everyone to make a commitment, to make a pledge on how much you're willing to contribute to this campaign. But at the end of the day, it's about trusting God. It's we want that to be a decision that's between you and Him, and when we have enough time to plan and prepare for it. And so here's some things we do know for sure. It's about the vision. We do know that God has put this vision on Joey's heart and the hearts of the leadership, and everyone in the church leadership here is committed to this journey. It's about obedience. We do know that starting this journey as a church family is the next step God has for us, and so we're going to take that step as a family. It's about connection. We do know that God is going to take, or that it's going to take every one of us to make this a success. Obviously God is God. He can do what He wants. He doesn't need our help. But the reason we're taking this journey together is because we believe that this is a way that He wants to use to help us grow in our obedience, to expand our reach to the community around us so that we can serve Him more fully. Above everything else, it's about fulfilling our commitment to help people find and follow Jesus. So we're asking every one of you to be a part of this journey, not because God needs our help, but because we need His. You'll be hearing more and more about this, the Connect journey, as we go forward, especially this month. It's going to be something that's talked about every service, and we want you to be a part of it. So how can you be? So as I said, at the end of the month, we're going to be asking everyone to make a financial pledge, and we want you to begin praying about what God wants you to give. And one thing we want to be clear about is that any pledge that you make to the Connect journey is separate from tithes and offerings. We take tithes and offerings every service, and that's how we take care of the day-to-day operations and how we fund the ministries of this church. But we don't want anybody, if you're giving tithes or offering right now, we don't want you to take money away from there and give it to the Connect journey. This needs to be something that's separate, that's above and beyond that. Another way that you can be part of it is by joining Connect Team. A few weeks ago, we had some sign-ups outside, and we had sign-up sheets and the team leaders, because we have various teams that are serving for this Connect journey in different ways. And I know a lot of you already signed up for a team, but if you haven't yet, we have sign-up sheets available again at the back of the auditorium here. And after each service, team leaders will be back there to share information about their teams, what their team responsibilities are, and invite you to be a part of it. So I think we have some slides. I want to introduce the team leaders in case you're not familiar exactly who they are. But first of all, myself and my wife, Callie, were the campaign directors for this project. We have the administration team, which is led by Deanna Cheney and Bo Morgan. So we have the media team led by Carly Riley. We have the events team led by Jeff Danforth, Rosemary Weep. We have the prayer team led by Darren Brown and Tom Redinger. The communications team, or personal communications team, sometimes you'll hear us call that the PC team. That's led by Mason Burchett. We have the kids team led by Felon Michelle Schultz. And the students team led by Matt Riley and Jackie Heimer. Yeah! Very excited about that. So other ways to get involved and participate. Attend a meeting. We're going to have several meetings over the next several weeks where we have we're informational meetings led by Mason and the PC team. We're actually going to have the first one next Sunday right after church, right after the second service, if you want to hang out for that. This will be a time that you can bring any questions that you have. You can come and be ready to absorb all the information that we have. And we're going to share everything we know. But like I said, there's a lot we don't know at this point. And we don't have every answer. But we'll give you the answers that we do have. We're absolutely not trying to hold anything back or be secretive about this at all. Most importantly, above everything else, you can pray. Pray for the vision and for Grace Church to be steadfast and faithful to God's will over the coming months and years. Pray that our obedience will lead to everyone in our community have an opportunity to hear the gospel. So I think everyone should have gotten a brochure by now. If you haven't, we will have more available. Just come see me or one of the ushers that passed them out. We will definitely get you one. I'm going to turn it over to Joey now. Yeah. Okay. Sure. So our church is partnered with this gentleman, Ed Holland. He is somebody who he has had a career basically helping churches do journeys like this and fundraising type of things. He's helped them to he helps church families and church bodies grow in their stewardship and their obedience, and he's been working a lot with us as a consultant in this process, and he's going to be here in a couple of weeks to actually preach himself, and he'll share some more information and details about how the journey works as well. If you have any questions, as I said, come to one of those meetings. You can also come see myself or one of the team leaders, and again, we will tell you what we know. Thank you.
And we have this table in the back over here with different teams to sign up on. I think Carly and you guys can go. So right now we're going to watch this video. Carly put together this video that we're going to watch about the artist rendering of the new building. All right. Good job. Good job with the video, Carly. And also, so you know, the guy that did the artist rendering is an architect up in Michigan. Our youth pastor, Matt Riley, his dad's a pastor in Michigan. And this guy goes to his church, and he did that for free, which that's a lot of money, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of work that he gave it to us for free, so we're appreciative of that. I don't know who those people were in that video. I was thinking that to be real life, they should have had like some people smoking on the side, some kids out front throwing a football, right? I don't know. Anyways, all right, well, let's get into this message today, and at the end of this, we're gonna have some time of prayer, and I'm gonna challenge you guys to really come forward and pray about this, because this is the beginning of this journey that we're taking, and we know. Let me just say this from the outset, okay? I know that there's a lot of questions. There might even be some doubts if you go, you know, well, how much is this going to cost? And there's no way our church could afford that or pull this off. And all of that's true without God, right? And I've told you guys before, small prayers do not honor God. Like lack of faith, just like if we were just going, hey, we're just going to do something this year or in the next 3 years that we don't even really need God. We can all pull our money together and get this accomplished. No, we want to step out on faith and do something that's bigger than ourselves so that we're inviting God in. And if it happens, we can give God the glory. I've been walking with God for a while, and I've seen him do miracles. And why wouldn't we ask him to do a miracle? So we're not trying to do something that we can do in our own strength and our own power. We're begging God to step in and do something that we can't do. And it's going to be a witness to the community. It's going to strengthen all of your guys' faith once it gets accomplished. So let's, if you're taking notes, put this on the screen. So this Connect spiritual journey is more about surrendering your hearts fully to God than it is about how much you give. And that's really what we're talking about today we're trying to lay a foundation this month with these messages that I'm preaching about. And the first one is basically about surrendering. It's about if we would all surrender our lives fully in every area of our life. Man, it's amazing what God can do through a surrendered life. And so let's talk about this. The word Jabbok, and I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, but you may have never heard of that before. The Jabbok River is what we're going to be talking about today. And you probably remember this a few months ago, when I was preaching through the book of Genesis, if you were here. And the Jabbok River is the place where Jacob wrestled with God. right? He was all alone in this place, and it says that a man came and wrestled with him till the dawn. And that was, I believe that was Jesus. That was the angel of the Lord. That was Jesus that came and wrestled with him, and then he touched his hip and put it out of socket, and Jacob walked with the limp for the rest of his life. And he also, in that meeting, he changed his name from Jacob to Israel. He gave him a new name. And so the word Jabbok means the place of passing over. It also is representative of our struggle. It also means to empty or to pour out. And so the Jabbok River is a place of surrender. That's what we're talking about today. It's a place where we need to surrender. And let's just be honest. I feel like everyone in this room has got some areas of our life, of our spiritual life, that we have yet to surrender to God. It's part of walking with God that we try to keep back some things. Like you might have 99 things are completely sold out to God, but that one area is yet to be surrendered to God. And until we can learn to fully surrender to God, we're never going to walk in full victory. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. So before we get to the Jabbok, that's the third. We're going to look at 3 different crossings today, and that's why I called this the crossing. The first one, if you're taking notes, you can just write it down. The first one, well, I think it's already in there, the Red Sea crossing. And we talked about this last week. If you were here last week, we've been going through the book of Exodus, and I preached on the children of Israel. Now, let me just recap that for you. So the children of Israel were slaves for 400 years in Egypt. God sent Moses to release them from their bondage, and Pharaoh wouldn't let them go. So remember, God sent the 10 plagues, right? And the frogs and the lice and all this stuff. And the last one was what? The death of the firstborn. After that happened, Pharaoh finally let them go, and on their way out of town, they ransacked them. They took all their gold jewelry and everything. Well, the children of Israel, 2 million people, like this herd of people, they go and they stop at the Jordan River, right? They couldn't go forward. They either have to go to the left or the right, and they set up camp there. And then Pharaoh starts closing in. He changed his mind. He said, why did I let them leave? So he's closing in on them. And you remember what it says that they did? Do you remember what the children of Israel did? What's the word? They panicked. I see it on your face. They panicked, right? You ever panicked before? You ever, so they just freaked out. Have you ever freaked out before? Well, it's one of the things that you need to understand, that in life, there's going to be things that happen, and you need to try to keep a cool head, right? I mean, I see people panic all the time. In fact, I've done that. I want to tell you a story. I was going to talk about this last week, but I was very emotional last week. If you were here last week, I don't know if you saw that on my face, but I had a very traumatic experience happen to me a few days earlier, and seriously, and I wanted to talk about this last week, but I didn't know that I could get through it, and I almost broke down once in my message. Whenever I was talking about the Israelites panicked, and because they weren't trusting God, they panicked, and they were freaking out, and Moses was like, just calm down and watch what God does. So for me, what happened was, I was... last Sunday, the previous week, I was in California. I was in Fresno, California, all week at a pastor's conference. And the conference wrapped up on Wednesday night, and then I didn't fly out until Friday morning. And so me and a group of friends who are pastors, and we hiked a bunch of stuff, we went to go hike Half Dome, which is in Yosemite National Park. Anybody been to Yosemite before? Nope, not one. Nobody's been to. You guys need to take a vacation and go see that. It's really a great place. But I don't recommend you hike Half Dome because I almost died on it. And so we went there. This is like a bucket list for me and Michael Haley and John Haley. We've always wanted to do this. And so we got to do that. We put in for a permit on Tuesday of last week, and they miraculously, we got it. So we started making plans. We were all not in shape to hike a mountain like that. But go ahead and put it on the screen. So this, if you've never seen this before, this is Half Dome. And this is, if you have a North Face jacket or shirt or anything, the logo for North Face, that's what this is. And so we started all the way at the bottom, and we hiked all the way up to that tip up there. And so it was an amazing thing. Now, I was a little apprehensive the whole time because if you remember 4 years ago when me and these guys hiked the John Muir Trail, 17 days, we finished up the last day. We were going to hike Half Dome, but we didn't get a permit to hike it. So we basically just walked up to the bottom of the mountain there and then walked around because you got to have a permit to go up on top. And so we walked around it that day to finish up our very last day 4 years ago. And we saw a helicopter flying up, and we were like, oh crap, something must have happened. And somebody gave us word that a lady fell off Half Dome and died. She slid off that day and died. And that was the second person that died on that trip that we knew about. And so going up last Thursday, I was really just thinking about that lady the whole time. I'm like, this is really, really dangerous. And so we got all the way up there, and I almost didn't go up to the very top because you have to go up these cables. Go to the next slide. This is, that's me right there on the edge of that cliff. We were only up there for a few minutes because clouds started moving in, and there was like these 4 ladies that went out there to take a picture, and they were jumping up. They were trying to get a picture of them in the air, and it was just freaking me out. So I'm like, I'm getting off of this thing. People are going to start dying. And so it started sleeting while I was up there. So I told the guys, I said, I'm heading down, and started coming down these cables, and about a third of the way down, coming down the cables. If you go back to that last slide, so going up right on the other side, there's cables. There's like two cables because it's almost straight up, and I don't know why they don't make people harness in. Like I would never do that again I would never do it again anyways. And it's crazy. Like but rain moved in. It started sleeting and snowing, and then it started raining, and we're on the cables. And go to the next two. I think I have a picture of the cables. Just so you go to the next one. So this is the cables I was talking about. I don't know if you can see how slick it is, but it's maybe only a few hundred feet up, but it's straight up right there. And going up wasn't bad because it was dry, but now we got to get down, and it's super wet. And there was a ton of people on the cables, and I was about a third of the way down when I got stopped, and the people down below me panicked, and they freaked out, and they were like, we can't move any further, it's too slick. And so we sat there for about 15 minutes just holding on to this cable, and my hands were getting numb, and I was thinking I was going to slide off of there. And then I looked down, and about 5 or 6 people in front of me, this lady let go and slid down the mountain out of sight. And it's in the same spot where that lady died 4 years ago. And I just stood there in shock. And I looked at the other guys, and we just saw a lady slide off and die. And we sat there for about a minute, and then I heard somebody yell down. She slid down probably 500 feet and somehow miraculously stopped. She hit a rock or something, and she was stuck down there, broken legs, and probably every bone in her body's broken, and they yelled down to her, and she yelled back up, and I was like, oh my gosh, she didn't go off the cliff. And so, but we were stuck there, and we were all thinking we were next. And I think what really traumatized me was I couldn't help her, right? And there were other women down there that were screaming and talking about they couldn't make it, and so they wouldn't move. And I just thought for sure more people were going to slide off. And we sat up there for another hour holding on because the people below me wouldn't go. I mean, I could have got down, and it was slick, don't get me wrong, I was scared, but they wouldn't move. And then after about an hour and 15 minutes of holding on to this cable, lightning struck and hit the cable. And because the clouds moved in, it was black. You couldn't hardly see the person in front of you or behind me. And lightning struck, and I didn't know it at the time, but it hit the cable, and the people above me felt it. And I didn't feel it. I think at that time I had my feet resting on the 2 poles, and I wasn't holding on to the cable, whatever it was. But after the lightning hit, everybody said, all right, we're getting down. And so everyone started making their way down. And let me go to the next slide. I think I have me on the cables. This is where, that's me, and all the guys in my group are right there. And I sat there in that position for an hour and 15 minutes just waiting. And it's pouring down rain. It got cold. I'm shivering. I'm freezing. And eventually, when the lightning hit, we all got down. And I was really in shock of like seeing that lady, and it took an hour and a half for the helicopter to get there. And whenever I got down, and I'm kind of embarrassed to admit this, but I was like, I didn't even wait for the other guys in my group to come down. I was like, I'm going to go on ahead and go up over because I thought people were going to slide off that cliff, and I didn't want to watch it. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not, but I was like, I don't want to watch it. I just don't want to see any more people that happen to, because and so I was the girl that got that after we got down, someone above us also slid down and had to be helicoptered out too, and she didn't go off the cliff. It's a miracle that didn't happen. If they went off this other side, it's guaranteed that you're going off the cliff. So it's just a dangerous thing, and I just. Like, this has never happened to me before, but I started getting panic attacks. Like, I started just freaking out and freezing up and just seeing this visual of this woman sliding off the cliff, and I would just freeze up. And it almost happened last Sunday while I was preaching, so I didn't want to talk about it. And I'm okay, but I don't know if you've ever went through a traumatizing experience, but it messes with you, you know. I sometimes dream about that woman sliding off the cliff or sliding down. And so, anyways, I just wanted to talk about that, and maybe this is just free therapy for me to talk about it. But the reason why that lady slid down off the cliff is because she panicked. And that's one of the guys in our group was below us. He had fallen behind us and was getting ready to come up when we were coming down. And he was right next to that lady that slid. And he said she just panicked and she was freaking out and she just let go and then slid down. And so it's important for us this is why I brought it up, is it's important in life for us to not freak out and not panic, because there are things that are within your control, but a lot of things we just have to trust God. Like the children of Israel, when they were backed up, God had told them to do all this stuff, and here they are with their backs up against the Red Sea and the enemy closing in, and they panicked. Like, why do you panic? And I'm not down on them, because I might have been joining in with them. But we don't need to panic whenever God is with us, right? So let me give you the Red Sea crossing. There's a spiritual application to it. And if you're taking notes, this is what I want you to write down. The Red Sea crossing in a believer's life represents coming out of the world. And so what do I mean by that? So there's a lot of people who get saved. So the children of Israel, if you know much about the Bible, the children of Israel came out of Egypt and they walked through the Red Sea on dry ground. But do you remember, it was only about 3 weeks from that point to the Promised Land. God said that the land of Canaan's all yours. You just got to get over to the Jordan River, cross the Jordan River, and it's all yours. 3 weeks. How long did it take them? 40 years. Why? Because their disobedience, because they doubted God and they sent spies over. We're going to get to that whole story. But they spent 40 years in there. And so it's sad that there are many people, many thousands of people came out of Egypt but never got into the Promised Land. And I see that there's a lot of people who get saved and they come out. You're going to heaven when you die. Like, you have that promise. God is your Savior, but He's not really your Lord. And so you've come out of Egypt, but you really haven't entered the Promised Land, because you really haven't surrendered your whole life yet. And it's a sad place to be in. And what God wants us is to come out of Egypt, yes, but also to experience the Promised Land. But that comes when you surrender your life. So let's talk about the second crossing for a minute, and it's this. It's the Jordan River crossing. In the Jordan River crossing, we're going to come to this in a few weeks, a few months, when in the book of Exodus that we're studying. But we're going to talk about how when they got to the Jordan River, you just need to understand that at this time, it's flood stage time. Like it had been raining a lot. This is the time of year when the Jordan rivers, the banks are overflowing. And they didn't have bridges back then, right? We have rivers all around here. The Missouri River is a big river. Every time I want to cross it, I just go across the 291 bridge, right? They didn't have bridges back then. So it was a major thing to cross a river at that time. And there were 2 million people with all their cattle, with all their livestock, with all their kids and all their stuff. They had to get it over. And God did another miracle where He stopped up the Jordan River and they walked across on dry ground. And And so if you're taking notes, the Jordan River represents a commitment to go on with the Lord into deeper things. Okay? And again, this is similar, so it's what we're talking about. It's not enough just to come out of Egypt, but you got to cross the Jordan River. And for a lot of people, you're a Christian and you go to church and you do a lot of spiritual things, but you have maybe a secret sin that nobody knows about, or you have an area that you just struggle with and nobody really knows about it. But every time you pray, it's the thing that you confess to God, and you don't really surrender that area of your life. And we're going to come back and talk about this more. But let's talk about this last one. Here's the last crossing that we're going to talk about today. And it's the Jabbok crossing. And that's what I talked about starting with. So the Jabbok River was a tributary. It's a little arm off of the Jordan River. And whenever Jacob got there, I just want you to understand that spiritually speaking on this, Jacob was at a place where he knew God, but he wasn't fully committed to God until he wrestled with God all evening. And what you need to understand about that is this is a place that you have to go alone. So the Jordan River was crossed with a whole group of people. Thousands of people crossed that as a group. The Red Sea was crossed as a group. And there's a lot of things that we can do as a group, but there are certain things in your life that you can only do. It's just one-on-one with you and God. And so you've got to get alone with God. And let me show you this. And if you got a Bible, in Genesis 32, verse 24, it says this. It says, this left Jacob all alone. So he was at the Jabbok River. And he had sent all of his family ahead. And he divided the camps up into two places. Because remember, I'll just give you a little background story. Because remember, he had a brother. Jacob had a brother. And his name was, who knows, for 10 points. Esau. And remember, he messed over Esau. He tricked him out. He got him to sell his birthright for a bowl of stew. So Esau was upset with him. And then years later, he stole his blessing. He pretended like he was Esau. He put animal skins on him and went and tricked his father into giving him the blessing. Now Esau, he hadn't seen Esau for 20 years. And now Esau, he heard Esau is coming to meet you with 400 men. And it didn't sound like that was going to be a cordial meeting. It sounded like he was coming to kill him. So Jacob's panicking, he's freaking out, and he gets alone with God. And it says this left Jacob all alone in the camp. And a man came and wrestled with him until the dawn began to break. And he was a desperate man. I mean, I'm going to skip through some of this stuff just for the sake of time. But you need to understand that this was a place that Jacob got alone with God, and he wrestled with God all night long, and he left that place a changed man. And here's what he said in Genesis 32, backing up to verse 10. It says this. He goes, I am not worthy of the unfailing love and faithfulness you have shown to me, your servant. So right now he's humble, and he's trying to do the right thing. But I want to show you this other verse in verse 20. If you jump down to verse 20, he was still... Do you remember what Jacob's name was? Do you remember what one of his name, like what his name means? Like schemer, he's like a cheat. He's always, people like this, he's always trying to cheat the system. He's always trying to find a loophole. I used to be like that before I was saved. I mean, I was always trying to find loopholes in the system. And truth be told, I probably still have that in me a little bit. But he was always trying to scheme. And here's what it says in verse 20. It says, Jacob thought about, talking about his brother, he goes, I will try to appease him by sending gifts ahead of me. When I see him in person, perhaps he will be friendly to me. So instead of Jacob in that moment trying to rely on God about the situation with his brother, he's trying to finagle things. He's trying to finesse it. He's trying to go, I'm wealthy, I have a lot of gifts, so let me send these gifts to try to appease my brother. And it wasn't until he wrestled with God all night that he figured out that all of that stuff is just not going to work. And at the end of that, verse 27, I want to show you this. It says, the angel of the Lord, which I believe was Jesus, said, what is your name? The man asked, and he replied, Jacob. And in that moment, I talked about this before when I preached on this a few months ago, but he was trying to get Jacob to understand who he really was. You understand what I'm saying? Like if you get alone with God and you really hear from God and you ask God to really deal with you, God is going to go, well, let's really pull back the curtains and let's really take a look at your life and figure out who you really are. Like not the person that you are when you walk through the doors of church and everyone's like, oh, hey, it's good to see you. Who you really are. Who you really are when no one's around. All of the flaws and all of the finagling that we do, all the scheming that we do to try to put on this image and this facade so that everybody thinks that I have it all together, when in reality, none of us do. And it's not until we get honest with God about the things that's in our lives. And I don't know. I've been trying to do that in my life in the last few months and really just I've said this before, but I've just been doing a deep dive on my life and just going, man, I've got some things that going all the way back to my childhood. If you've never dealt with some of the traumas from your childhood, from your past, from some of the things that's happened to you, I promise you, you're never going to find victory over the things in your life because your behaviors that are outward behaviors now are connected to some of the things from your past. And we don't do a good job. I know for me, I don't like thinking about stuff like that. But lately, I've just been really reflecting on that and talking with people and trying to do a deep dive. And I've felt healing taking place in my life. And I just want to encourage you to do that. You may not want to do that. I didn't want to do that. But until you figure out how to do that and get alone with God and just let Him point out some things, right? And just go, yeah, you know, everybody thinks that you have it all together, but you have this issue. And God's like, and you have this issue. And it's not that He's mad at you. God is not against you. God's not standing there with a baseball bat waiting to thump you over the head for all of your misdoings. He's going, no, I just want to deal with that because you're not dealing with that. The way you deal with that is to medicate with drugs or alcohol or sleeping around or whatever it is. We have all kinds of unhealthy things that we do to medicate ourselves. And God's like, I can fix that. I can really bring healing to your life. So let me give you the final, the final thing is the Jabbok River represents absolute surrender. And this is why Ed Holland, the guy that we partnered with and hired as our consultant, he just believes that in order to take this journey that we're going on, starting today, is that we really need everybody to figure out what they haven't surrendered. And you may not be ready to fully surrender yet, but we're going to challenge you to do so. And if everybody in our church would do it, man, we would be like an unstoppable force. We would be like an army that nobody can defeat us. But, and I'll say this too, whenever stuff happens like this, whenever God's about to do something, you know the enemy's real, right? You know that Satan's real. He's a real person. And you know he hates you, right? Everyone in here, he hates your guts. When he sees you, you remind him of what he used to have. Satan used to be in heaven with God, and he got kicked out because he tried to overthrow God. He wanted God's job, and that job's not for sale. That job's not open. But whenever he sees you, he wants to destroy you. And so he wants to cause division. Our church, I would say our church is pretty unified. And yet, whenever God's about to do something miraculous in our church, whenever we're about to go to the next level, Satan always throws a monkey wrench in, and there's always conflict with people. And I recognize that. Do you recognize that? You should recognize that in your family, in your life, when somebody just attacks you out of nowhere. You're like, I see what's happening, and you just got to go, not today, Satan, not today, Satan. And we need to do that as a church and not allow the enemy to divide us, because if he wants to stop us before we get going, and that's how he will do it, with this unity. So let's do this. Let's bow our heads and let's close our eyes. And I don't know what your area of surrender is, but matter of fact, let's all just stand to our feet. And I know you've been sitting for a while. Let's all stand up. I just want us to, not as a group. I'm not talking about let's all surrender everything. I'm talking about individually. This is you and God. This is just you and God at the Jabbok River, and you're wrestling with God. And he goes, what's your name? In other words, What's the one thing? Just a reminder that you are a schemer. Like he wanted Jacob to remember, hey, before we move forward, you're a liar and a schemer, and you're always trying to work the system, and you're always trying to get over on people. And you need to surrender that. God told him that without telling him that. He communicated that to him. And Jacob realized that. And he touched his hip and put it out of socket, and he walked with a limp for the rest of his life. And that was a reminder for him that I'm a different person now. I'm not Jacob, the schemer, the heel grabber. I am Israel. And he was a different person from that day forward. And so I'm going to ask our staff to come forward. I'm going to ask our deacons and all of the team leaders. I want you guys to just come forward, and I want you guys just to kneel at the altar. I want us to, everybody, and anybody else that wants to come down, or if you want to turn around and kneel down right where you're at, let's take some time and let's surrender. Or individuals, like I just want you to talk to God and just say, God, I'm here to play my part. I want to be a piece of the puzzle, and I'm here to surrender. With heads bowed and eyes closed, just still in an attitude of prayer, I just want to challenge you. If you're here this morning and you don't have a relationship with Jesus, like if you've never come out of Egypt in that regard, spiritually speaking, you've never begun a relationship with Jesus, I want to encourage you to talk to somebody today about that. And we're not going to do that in this service, but if you come back to the Next Step cart, Pastor Chuck's going to be back there, and other people will be around, and we want to sit down with you and walk you through the Bible and show you what it means and how you can have all of your sins forgiven in a home in heaven. We don't want you to leave here until you get that taken care of. And from there, the rest of us, everybody, myself included, let's work on this week. Let's ask God to show us the areas that we have yet to surrender. And if you ask God with a sincere heart, I'm convinced that He will show you. He'll point it out to you in a gentle voice. Just remember, God's not against you. He's for you. The reason why God wants you to go all in with every area of your life, because it only brings good things ahead. He's not trying to deprive you of fun, of pleasure. He's for you. He's not against you. The enemy wants you to think that God just doesn't want you to have any fun. That's why he wants to take away all these things from you. It's not that. It's not that. God wants your whole heart. And if there's anything that comes between me and him, he wants to remove it. And so whatever that looks like for you, I want to encourage you this week. I want to encourage you this week to spend some time with God, starting right now and tomorrow when you wake up, and every day this week. Pray for this campaign that we're doing, this spiritual journey that we're doing this for the whole month of October, and starting on the 22nd that week, we're going to be doing a prayer walk and a prayer journey. and want you to join in with that. And hopefully you'll pray more during this month than you ever have in your life, and that's a good thing. So let's pray together. God, thank you for what you're doing in our lives. We want to be a part of something bigger than ourselves, something significant. And this is not about building a building. This is about our church banding together and going on a journey together and doing something that's significant, that's worthwhile, that's worth getting out of bed in the morning. It's worth telling people about coming to Grace Church because they're going to hear hope. They're going to hear about hope and healing, and their kids are going to be able to go to the kids area and in a safe environment and learn about God, and the parents are going to feel good about that. And God, we're excited about what you're calling us to do, and we're ready for this journey. And as you lead, we'll follow. In Jesus' name, amen. Be sure to stop by the table back there. If you're not a part of one of these groups, be sure to stop by and see about signing up for a group.